After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of long-standing U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research, with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people. And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs. Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist. Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Now, ODNI will continue working closely with partners across the U.S. government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world.
Welcome to MRE On America. For those of you that are here for the very first time, I am your host, Mr. E. And today we're going to be going on a little bit of a deep dive, not real deep, but just mainly some information for you to get you up to speed on one of the most important national security stories of 2026. So outgoing Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just declassified evidence of over 120 U.S.-funded biological laboratories in more than 30 countries, with dozens of them in Ukraine. So you plainly heard it on the video that played just before I came on. She said your government lied to you. And we're going to explain exactly how these labs are funded, what gain-of-function research really is, the Wuhan connection, the 2022 Rubio Nuland hearing, and why this matters to every single American. So even if you're brand new to this topic, you'll hopefully be able to understand everything by the end of this episode. So we're going to get right into it right after this, so please buckle up. We'll be back in under 2 minutes.
There's misery on America, spilling truth in the night. Mainstream hiding the fire, but it's bringing the light. It's Strap on the armor of God, stand tall, never fold. Giving you the real news stories the brave ones won't hold. Yeah, the real word is buried, but I dig it up bold. Mystery on America. Watch the truth unfold. Turn on your TV, they feed you the same old lies. Pretty faces smiling while the real world cries. They cherry pick the narrative, keep the people blind. But down in the shadows, the hidden truth I find. No corporate bosses pulling on my strings. I chase the stories with fire in my veins. And mystery on America, spilling truth in the night. Mainstream hiding the fire, but it's bringing the light. Strap on the armor of God, stand tall, never fold. Giving you the real news stories the brave ones won't hold. Yeah, the real word is buried, but I dig it up bold. Mystery on America.
I didn't have my microphone on again. I hit the button, but it didn't go on. Time for a new mic. So anyway, we're back. We're back from the intro, and what I wanted to do is get started real quick with the very first, the basics on everything is about the big question here is how are the biolabs funded? Okay, and I just wanted to mention that this is not secret black budget money. This is your tax dollars appropriated by Congress through the U.S. Department of Defense. Okay, the main program is called the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program. specifically the Biological Threat Reduction Program. It's run by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and there's some acronyms that go with that. You can figure that out. It's pretty easy. So it began in 1991 after the Soviet Union collapsed. The original goal through the Nunn-Lugar program was to secure and eliminate weapons of mass destruction, especially dangerous biological pathogens that were left in the old Soviet labs. And the reason they wanted to do this is so terrorist or rogue states couldn't get in there and steal them. All right, so since 2005, the United States has poured roughly $200 million into 46 laboratories, health facilities, and diagnostic sites, just in Ukraine alone, okay? So these labs work in high-risk pathogens like anthrax, plague, and tularemia, Ebola, and a host of others, okay? So this same program operates in over 30 other countries worldwide, including former Soviet states, Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East, and beyond. So annual budgets for this program have ranged between $160 million and $235 million in recent years. So now we're going to get to the most controversial part of this. This here is called the gain of function research. So I'm going to give it to you in plain English. The explanation of gain of function research is when scientists take a virus or a bacteria and deliberately modify it to make it more dangerous. They try to give it new abilities, make it spread faster, infect new species, become more deadly or resistant to vaccines or treatments. So supporters of the gain of function say, you know, this is like the Fauci guys, you know, and not so good people. They say we need to study these enhanced pathogens so we can prepare vaccines and treatments before a natural outbreak happens. Okay, we saw how that went, and we'll get into that in a minute. So I think either these people are trying to play God, or maybe better yet, they're working with the devil. Okay, they're definitely not trying to play God. So the critics of gain of function, which is more like the good guys, they say this is playing with fire, and because one lab accident could spark a global pandemic. So this became extremely relevant during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Wuhan Institute of Virology in China was conducting gain-of-function style research on bat coronaviruses. The U.S. government, through EcoHealth Alliance and NIH grants, had funded some of that work. Many of the experts now believe a lab leak from that research may have started the pandemic that killed millions of people and wrecked economies worldwide. But we're finding out, however, that it was a plandemic, and it was meant to make people sick, so it wouldn't have killed anybody, but they wanted people to get sick so they could go get as many people to go in and take that vaccine, or commonly referred to as the jab, what people are really afraid to talk about on FluffTube and other social media for fear of losing their accounts. But that's where the problem lied, okay? It was the vaccines that actually caused the multitudes of death, not the actual SARS-CoV-19 virus, okay? And let me bring this up here for you. I've got, there we go. So this here is an executive order that President Trump issued back in May of 2025. Okay, so this executive order was to ban U.S. taxpayer funding for high-risk gain-of-function research in foreign countries, especially those with poor safety standards. So Tulsi Gabbard's declassification supports that push for transparency and safety. So now, on June 12th of 2026, Tulsi Gabbard released the never-before-seen intelligence that stated, as you saw in the opening video, she says, "Today I'm releasing never-before-seen intelligence revealing new evidence of past U.S. government funding for more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries, including Ukraine, in support of President Trump's executive order to end federal funding of dangerous gain-of-function research around the world." Okay? So after months of searching, DNI Tulsi Gabbard is revealing new evidence of long-standing United States government funding for more than 120 biolabs. The information has been intentionally covered up by powerful people falsely claiming that they do not exist. Okay? So politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci and entities within the Biden administration lied to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded biolabs. So I was thinking here, instead of me re-quoting everything again, let's listen to that video clip one more time and pay very close attention, because some of the things that we're going to go into next are going to deal with some of the things that she said and that you might have missed as she was talking about it. So let's pop back in there and listen to Tulsi one more time.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and
I went off the bit. Hold on a second.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of long-standing U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people. And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs. Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist. Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Now, ODNI will continue working closely with partners across the U.S. government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world.
Okay, so we heard it again. If you noticed in there were actually threats to people's lives if they were to say anything about this, and there were people that were taken out because they were trying to release this information. Now, what I found very interesting, okay, just since the other day after Tulsi Gabbard released this video and they did the news release, the actual news release is down. If you look in the description below the video on YouTube and Rumble, you'll see the very last link there before we get into the sponsor section. That very last link, it takes you to a Google Docs folder, and it's got some of the hearings and stuff that went through, their transcripts from the hearings back in 2005, and it lists all the people that were involved in those hearings and people that were in the hearings that were being interviewed by the congressional or the Congress people that were up on the panel. So again, now just the other day, and I saw more of it today. So I'm thinking, even though they're 8 hours ahead from me, it's taken like days for some of this information to get out to people in Ukraine. I follow along in some of their news forums that they have on Telegram, and Zelensky came out and publicly stated that none of their biolabs were for anything but for medical care. He said that they were not involved in any biological weapons or anything like that. Okay, so if that's the case, then we can take and go back and look through some of those documents, and we'll find out that some of that gain-of-function research on the COVID-19 stuff was actually being done in Ukraine too. So when you think of China, it's CHYNA. Remember how President Trump always talked about China like that? So that's how that got connected, and you had to take a look. So anyway, I have these other slides here. I'm not going to go through them one by one, but I just want to show you what they look like and just the main parts. So these slides that I have linked down in the show notes, they include maps, funding records, and lists of dangerous pathogens. Okay, so the declassified documents focus heavily on Ukraine, and let me go ahead and bring that up so you can see. This is what they look like when you click on that link. Okay, so they focus heavily on Ukraine and over 40 facilities that they have, and it's in an active war zone. Okay, so that raises huge security concerns. If one country the size of Ukraine has this many U.S.-backed labs, what does the full 30-plus country network look like? Okay, now, from my sources, I'll say, that were on the ground in Ukraine that were telling me about the biolabs that they knew about, that when Russia started hitting Ukraine with their cruise missiles and stuff like that, they were actually hitting the known locations of where these biolabs were. Unfortunately, for some of the people that were either injured or killed, they have these biolabs in civilian areas. Okay, so basically, now, and I'm going to show you here in just a second, back in 2022 on March 8th, Senator Rubio was asking Undersecretary Victoria Nuland some stuff here. But I'm going to let you guys hear the clip. So we'll just pop over to that real quick. I'm going to let you listen to that, and then I'll bring my talking head back on.
I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country, and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
So I just had to chuckle there. She said that's kind of like Russia's tactic to blame on other people what they're doing. And that's exactly what the Democrats do. It's called deflection. They blame other people for what they're doing. And Victoria Nuland, she pretty much was the one that let the cat out of the bag, okay? Because it was only the numbskulls that actually believed that Russia was actually trying to attack Ukraine to get access to and not destroy these biological labs, and even if there was any weapons being made. So you remember way back when, in the early, was it 2010, 2009, 10, or somewhere around there, when they made this agreement. It was after Ukraine became its own like state, if you will, or country, but they gave up all their nukes. Okay, so the other question I have is, one, did they really give them all up? And number two, were they actually involved in making biological type weapons of war, of mass destruction? Okay, so I just thought it was funny because, you know, Victoria Nuland is a Democrat, and right there she was straight up. You could tell by the look on her face that she was lying when she was saying that it was Russia. So it's funny because they automatically try to play Russia off as the boogeyman. Okay, so we can see where this was going even back then. All right, so Tulsi's new release adds some hard evidence, maps, and funding details to that 2022 admission. So there's like the global scope, implications, and counterpoints. Okay, these programs now span over 30 countries. Official U.S. position, quote, "We're just doing biosecurity and threat reduction." Tulsi Gabbard's position, dangerous research was happening with little oversight, and the American people were lied to. And not only were we lied to, our money was taken without our knowledge and spent on something that we never would have agreed on. Okay? Now, the Wuhan lab controversy showed the world how risky gain-of-function research can be when it escapes control. Okay, now I want to add something in there that I don't have in my notes. Okay, so we know that some of that gain-of-function was actually being done in Ukraine. And it started out in, if I remember, the university was Chapel Hill, but then Obama wanted to cover this up. So he says, no, we're not going to do gain-of-function research in the United States. So what they did is Fauci and NIH moved it to Wuhan, China, and then through roundabout ways they were able to finance it because Obama came out and said that, yeah, we're not gonna fund all of this gain-of-function research. But what they did is that was when they started using the roundabout way and through Department of Defense. And again, this here is during the Obama and Biden eras when this stuff was going on. Okay, so they were actively stealing from us even back then. Okay, even more so. Okay, so that's why the transparency and Trump's executive order is so critical. Okay, so we already looked at the I think we look at the executive order? I don't think we did. Let me change over to that screen, and I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit here so we can see it a little bit better. And let me just jump back over to here. All right, so this here is kind of like the top portion of that executive order. This is where President Trump said, vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered dangerous gain-of-function research on biological agents and pathogens has the potential to significantly endanger lives of the American citizens. If left unrestricted, it affects its effects can include widespread mortality and impaired public health system, disrupted American livelihoods, and diminished economic and national security. He even stated the Biden administration allowed it within the United States. Like I said, it started at Chapel Hill with insufficient levels of oversight, and it actively approved through the National Institutes of Health federal life science research funding in China and other countries where there is limited United States oversight. Okay, so his executive order even spelled it out very clearly, what we were dealing with. Okay, so we covered the taxpayer funding, what gain of function actually is, the Wuhan connection, Tulsi's full quotes, the Rubio hearing, and the global picture. So what we have to remember here is that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So I want to hear what you guys think. Drop your questions and comments. Throw it in the chat and leave comments down below, because it helps the algorithm, helps this stuff get out a little bit better. So if you guys can help me out, I see we got some people out there in the chat. Want to give a shout out to Lady Molly. She's been helping me quite a bit. And actually contributing a very large amount of the research and the things that we talk about recently. So big shout out to Lady Molly, one of my moderators and one of our researchers. Okay, so let's see here. We have, I'm just looking through here to see if I have any more information to share with you other than what's already down below. I wanted to have this just be a quick one and provide you with the information, and also kind of make note and kind of make fun of a little bit too of some of the twists and turns that the Democrats and the rhinos pull, and how what's going on right now with all the fraud, it's been going on a lot longer. And this is just another aspect of that fraud and how they've been stealing from the American people. So again, just remember, throw your comments below the video. The links are down there for all the show notes. They're on Rumble and YouTube. If you're watching over on X, under the original post, there's a comment that's got all of the links there. I just want to check the chat really quick. Yeah, Remote Vera 57 says, yep, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And thank you, Lady Molly. You're a huge help. And I know I had another window open here. And all right, so I've got mods over there on Rumble. Haven't got anybody really chatting much, so, but my mods are over there, so that's cool. All right. So finally, as I always talk about here, I want you all to be safe out there. Keep your heads on a swivel, because there's a lot of things that we know are rumored to happen. Some things are happening. There are things going on out there that they're not actually calling like a terrorist attack or anything like that, but there's a lot of people, that are involved in stabbings and shootings and things like that recently. So always be aware of your surroundings and be prepared to act in a time of distress. Okay, so I will see you all next time on Mr. E on America. God bless all of you out there on the other side of this screen. And just peace out.
Rig 4 ready, lights go low. The reel begins to spin, shadows move like whispered lines from a script you're living in. Faces from central casting, perfect smiles that never fade. Every handshake feels rehearsed, every promise feels like play. Silent running in the background, something deep beneath the waves. And the world you thought was solid starts to flicker like a stage. You can feel the scene shifting, You can hear the set boards creak. There's a truth behind the curtain that the actors never speak. You're watching a movie. Stomp it down, feel the beat. Every glitch in their performance is a clue beneath your feet. You're watching a movie. Boots hitting like a rolling train, and the cracks in their illusion let you see behind the frame. You're watching a movie. Stomp, 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 stomp. Truth in the flame. There's a character that walks like a robot, stiff and out of time, moving like a silicone suit. Is hiding something in the spine. A smile freezes mid-expression. A blink lands seconds late, like the scene was shot on purpose, just to show the world is fake. Silent running turns to rumble, sonar pings beneath the lies, and the script they tried to follow starts to crumble in their eyes. You can see the seams tear open, you can hear the playback break. Every glitch is just a warning of the truth they couldn't fake. You're watching a movie. Stomp it down, feel the beat. Every glitch in their performance is a clue beneath your feet. You're watching a movie. Boots hitting like a rolling train, and the cracks in their illusion let you see behind the frame. You're watching a movie. Stomp, 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 stomp. Truth in the flame. And the actors miss their cues. Lines are delivered out of order, like they want to break the rules. The projector starts to stutter, scenes rewind and loop again, and the truth that's been recorded rises up from where it's been. Cause a movie's already finished, every frame and every take, and the ending that they buried is the one that's gonna wake. You can feel the real burn brighter, you can hear the final theme. When the masks fall off the actors, you'll remember what you've seen. You're watching a movie. Stomp it down, feel the beat. Every glitch in their performance is a clue beneath your feet. You're watching a movie. Boots hitting like a rolling train, and the cracks in their illusion let you see behind the frame. You're watching a movie. Stomp, 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 stomp. Truth in the flame. Spins on, the lights grow dim, the truth breaks through the film's old skin. The actors freeze, the set unwinds, and the story shows us hidden lines. You're not lost, you're in the seat, watching history on repeat. You're watching a movie. Hear the thunder in the score. Every scene that felt confusing makes more sense than it did before. You're watching a movie. The illusion's losing steam, and the credits start to roll. Everything behind the speed. You're watching a movie. Stomp, 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 stomp. Truth in the flame. You're watching a movie. You're watching a movie. watching a movie. Hear the thunder in the score. Every scene that felt confusing makes more sense than it did before. You're watching a movie. The illusion's losing steam, and the credits start to roll on everything behind the screen. The film keeps running, but the truth is breaking through. You're watching a movie, and the ending's coming soon.